Welcome to Good Day Canton. I'm your host, Supervisor Anne Marie Graham Hudak, and we have a very informative show for you today. This episode will be all about Canton's new programs, which involve our Public Safety Department and our residents. With me right now is Canton's Director of Police, Chad Bow, and Lauren Kogali, the Executive Director of the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission. Later on, we will also be hearing from Trustee Summer Foster. Thank you both for being here. Chad, let's start with you. What is the Canton Coalition for Inclusive Communities?
Well, it's a group that was formed some years ago, originally called the Hate Crimes Coalition. And from that, we looked at the name of the group. The goal was to include different parts of our community. And we didn't have so many hate crimes, so it was a little bit misleading. And during the formation of the Hate Crimes Coalition, we learned that group is really taught many different groups of our community about inclusion. So that's where the name came from. So we have different members from our community that come together and review some of the issues that the police department deal with, and also they come together and find ways to teach our community about how they're a part of our community, an inclusive environment.
Can you tell me about some of the events that the Hate Crimes Coalition had before when it was named that?
We did some events. Some of the events would be with the library. We meet your Muslim neighbor, meet your Sikh neighbor, and events like that.
Okay. Can you tell us about this new transparency subcommittee?
Right. You know, with policing today, to be on the forefront of policing, we were trying to find ways to build trust with our community. And by and large, we have a strong partnership with our community in how we police and how our programming works. But there are parts of our society, in our region, and our citizens that maybe don't trust the police. And we want to find ways to fill those gaps, build those bridges. And when you look at some of the trust issues, it has to deal with the police investigations when they investigate themselves. So from that orientation, we looked at how do you build a group that can look at police investigations on themselves, misconduct allegations, misuse of force allegations, issues of biased policing. So have a group that can review, an independent panel, review the work of my police department and provide guidance back to me. And the obvious location for that came out of the CCIC group, who has a long-standing group in our community, and they could take a look at what we do.
Okay, thank you. Lauren, it wasn't too long ago when you and I worked on a group called Plymouth Canton Citizens for Diversity and Inclusion, and that happened before the Hate Crimes Coalition. So could you describe what it was that happened that led up to where we are now?
Sure. Thanks. That's been it's been a number of years, and it's very cool to see that evolve into something so meaningful in the community. So PCCDI, or at the time Plymouth Canton Community for Diversity and Inclusion, was a group of community members who had joined together with some support from the Michigan Roundtable for Diversity and Inclusion to really take a look at how to create a more inclusive community through community members working directly with our institutions that serve our broader communities. I think there's something particularly unique about the Plymouth Canton area is that although there are separate cities and townships that we share a school district and we share a court, and so there are a lot of overlap with respect to those institutions that serve the community. And so I think this was a really natural piece to come out of that work, which was one of the things we had done was really sit down at the time with a director that was preceded Chad by two directors, I think, to start to talk about how policing in Canton could better reflect the needs of the community, that it could be more inclusive of this sort of growing diversity in the community. Two directors later, or one director later, I think after that, actually the Hate Crimes Coalition was established, bringing in the civil rights representatives from the Civil Rights Department, representatives from the mosques and Gurdwaras and other community groups to work together with the police, and now is transitioning, I think, into this new next life to sort of reflect the growing commitment to the police to sort of better serve as public servants to the community.
So when you were involved at that time, I mean, we've seen a lot of changes occur. And so Canton is kind of lucky that way in that we've been working on this for a long time. So what changes have you seen because you've been a part of this movement?
Yeah, so I mean, I will say I grew up in Canton and have lived my almost entire life, but for a brief stint in Plymouth or Canton. You know, one of the things that I think is so important here, and I was really flattered to be asked to be part of these conversations, is that the subgroup for transparency really comes out of you know, the legislative body of the township and the police saying, right, we are public servants, we are all collectively public servants, and how do we make sure what we're doing is actually reflective of our community needs? And I think it's so important. You know, one of the things that I think can be really challenging from a community perspective about policing is, you know, the not knowing the lack of transparency that sort of occurs, right? Not knowing what to expect when there are police and citizen encounters, not knowing what to expect in terms of an investigation or when a complaint is filed. And I think what's been unique about this process is that it hasn't arisen out of an incident, but it's actually sort of forethought, right? Like, what does it look like to be a public safety department that is actively and intentionally partnering with our community to make sure that we're setting expectations for ourselves, that those are being communicated to the community, and that the community is our partners in setting expectations for what policing looks like, what their needs are in our particular community.
Based on your experience across the state, do you see any of the communities doing something like this?
So there are a number of communities that have established, I'm going to use a broad term and say police accountability boards, which take on a variety of have sort of a variety of purposes. Certainly, you know, Grand Rapids and Lansing and Detroit have all established boards that are meant to engage the community in looking at policing, particularly around investigations with respect to use of force or where weapons are used. However, you know, one of the things that I think is really unique about this is, you know, it sort of culminated from the community representatives on the Board of Trustees, and from the Public Safety Department itself. And you know, I just think that it really sort of sets the stage for a really inclusive process, and I'm looking forward to seeing it evolve and develop.
Yes, and like you said, it did not happen because of an incident. It was all those partnerships that came together, and that's what makes it even stronger, you know, in my mind. So I just want to say we are going to be back in one more minute. You guys hold that thought. Welcome to Good Day Canton. We'll be right back.
Did you know that the Summit on the Park has its own free app for both Apple and Android? The app provides features such as notifications of classes, events, membership promotions, and much more. In addition, the Summit app allows members to self-check in and access calendars and facility information. So stay informed. Download the Summit app today.
Thursday Night Live is back, June 17th through August 19th. Bring blankets, chairs, and join family and friends at the Heritage Park Amphitheater. Have a good time and hear great music. Open from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. with musical performances from 7 to 8:30. It's free and all ages are welcome. There will be a variety of restaurants and food vendors and a lager, beer, and wine garden sponsored by Maraschino's Pub, with 100% of the proceeds going to Second Chance at Life. For more information, call 734-394-5460 or watch for updates on www.facebook.com/CantonFun. Thursday Night Live is sponsored by Community Financial. Hope to see you there.
afternoon.
Keep your hands on the wheel and your eyes on the road so that everyone can make it home.
Welcome back to Good Day Canton with our guests Lauren Kogali and Chief Chad Bow. Chad, you are to be commended for this. These are really hard times right now with the protests that we've seen over the last year in Black Lives Matter coming forth in our communities. So how do you handle this as a chief? I mean, you are kind of walking a balance here between convincing the young people in your police force and working with the community at the same time. So what's going on with that?
It comes down to communication. We're looking at building a trust bridge with our community. At the same time, I'm facing an organization that's always been known to be very much disciplined, has great oversight in our minds, but we have to build the other part too, the trust with the employees, whose work it's already been reviewed by my office and my command staff. Also have to now have another group take a look. And this group was a natural fit because there's a lot of trust already with the Hate Crimes Coalition, which now is the CCIC. So there's a lot of trust already been built over the last decade. So that was a big point on my part that I could build from in building support internally with this subcommittee. There's that voice that we're trying to build within our police programming too that can come out of this. So it's very important for our police department to acknowledge that we work for our citizens, and their programming, we need a voice to come back to us through their guidance of what they expect for how we strategize, how we train, and how we perform in the field for our citizens. So it's starting to all come together.
How do you think this will help your training?
I think it brings it full loop, because we can say our training is very much meant for success. But once we start seeing some of the voice from this group, a direct link through what independent counsel thinks about our work under the most challenging police circumstances. These are allegations of conduct, allegations of service issues. Once we have someone else to take a look at what we've already taken a look at ourselves, we can get an idea of what's going on from the community perspective. Then we can adjust accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Another program that you're bringing on board is a social worker or clinician program. And how is that going to work with this effort?
Well, there's going to be a role, I believe, to be intertwined not only with the CCIC and some of the work we do, not only with the subcommittee, but the group at large and some of the community events, some of the things that come through the CCIC on needs from our community, but also with the PSEP campus and the Plymouth Canton schools at large, because I know it looks like I believe they brought on some more school counselors, so we're going to combine some of that, some of the work with growth works that we're doing with our diversion programs, and some of the work that we're already doing with Tagara with our crisis intervention team. So a lot of this community work is coming together at the same time. And there's I think a question that's going to be driven out of all of this is, how do we define accountability? Traditionally on misdemeanor complaints and down, we've defined accountability through the court system. I don't know if it'll be this year or 10 years from now, but I think we're going to start redefining how you hold people accountable for their behavior, and it could be through diversion programs and social work programs and through groups like this.
That's very good. And of course, you are not a stranger to using outside community organizations to help with residents. I know that some of our different cultures have helped the police with going into some of the homes where there were language barriers or cultural barriers.
Right. Certainly, even with our substance abuse programs, issues in a family situation, a family trouble will enlist our partners. Actually, usually stem from the CCIC. If it's from the Sikh community, the Hindu community, we can reach out to these, these are our friends. We just call them and say, hey, we need help with this, and they're right there for us.
Do you want to give a little bit of a description of we also have a diversion program?
Yeah, we do have a diversion program. It's going to be expanded to 18, below 18, in the near future with the new legislation. But it's a program that doesn't go through the court process. Some of the concerns over the years, how we help hold juveniles accountable is through the court process. But this was on lower level offenses. We just offer them a diversionary program that lasts up to 6 months or even longer with GrowthWorks, who's been a great partner, who provides them some type of counseling depending on their issues, the underlying issues.
Okay, thank you. So Lauren, with your experience, what is your way to, how do you think we should measure something like this? I mean, because we're on the forefront of this, so how do you think we look back or look forward, and how we take some steps and measure and adjust accordingly?
Sure, thanks. That's a great question. You know, I see this as consistent and part of this really important, what I would call smart justice reform that is happening nationally, particularly in Michigan with legislative reforms over the last couple of years. And you know, I'm pleased to see that Canton has been a leader in starting to implement some of those reforms. You know, even knowing they were coming down the pipeline with the eye on thinking about our public welfare holistically. And so, you know, I think one of the really important pieces, and I think Chief Baugh just flagged this, is, you know, when we think about our community and what role the criminal legal system plays in our community, from, you know, police all the way through, you know, our jails and our prisons and our courts. You know, I think one of the questions we have to ask, one of the things we have to remind ourselves of is that we're all part of a larger community, right? And so what we want to see is that that this sort of initial contact through, which largely happens through the police, right? That the police that contact is something that actually serves the public safety. And B, that if there are ways to make sure that matter progresses in a way that better serves sort of our whole public welfare, that's what happens. And so I think that's why the diversion program, and one of the, you know, it is so important that Canton's juvenile diversion program keeps folks out of the court, because once you're in the court, once you bring more and more people in touching someone, there's more opportunities for, you know, a snowball effect, right, that has long-lasting impacts on people's lives. And so if there's the ability to connect people with social services before they even have a contact with the court, there's a strong likelihood they're never going to come back and get involved in the court. We're not going to see recidivism, right, because they're going to get the supports that they need to be able to stay, that addresses the issue that may have brought them into contact with law enforcement in the first place. So I think seeing less people having contact with the police, right, making sure that, you know, where appropriate, that people are being diverted from the court system to social services, particularly in cases where there are behavioral health issues that need to be met, or economic security issues that need to be met, right? You know, we should be moving away from enforcement by police and by courts and by our state and local laws that sort of reinforce criminalization of poverty and criminalization of race. And these are steps that I think, you know, really hit those things on the nose.
Oh, that's good to know. That's very good to know. And so when does this committee start?
They've been formed.
Okay.
So what we're doing now, you know, we received a grant, which is going to work with the education of the group and provide some not only police legal education, they're also going to provide some technical assistance from academia, from Michigan State University, that will help participate and form like a full context, so that group, that membership, understands everything that they can going into this, because these are professionals from different areas of life that either live or work in Canton, but not necessarily understand everything that goes into citizen police contacts. So that's what's going to help. So once we get that should be very soon. I know we have another CCIC meeting June 1st, but I believe that group should be meeting before that. So I know there's going to be a training.
A training? Okay,
yeah.
For the group. Now,
For
how
the
would if residents wanted to come and just listen to the committee meetings, not necessarily the subcommittee, but the CCIC, how would they do that?
For the subcommittee meetings?
No, for the regular
For
CCIC.
the CCIC meetings, they can reach out to the police department. Eva Davis, our library director, is a co-chair, and the deputy chief of the police department is a co-chair of the CCIC.
Okay.
So we can provide that Zoom link, because right now it's a Zoom link and in person, so it's a hybrid meeting format.
So Eva Davis she's already chosen the people that will be on that subcommittee
that's
for this
correct.
point.
Yep.
And how long do they serve for?
2 years.
For 2 years.
And
okay.
up to 6.
Up to 6, okay. All right, so I know I've gotten some calls, so basically people can come listen to the CCIC meeting, but that subcommittee's already been formed at this point.
Yep. So the requirements is you have to be active in the CCIC meeting, and you have to either live or work in Canton.
Well, thank you, Lauren and Chad, for being with us today and showing your leadership in this area all across Michigan, not just Canton. We're going to be some groundbreakers here. We will be right back after this break.
Thursday Night Live is back, June 17th through August 19th. Bring blankets, chairs, and join family and friends at the Heritage Park Amphitheater. Have a good time and hear great music. Open from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. with musical performances from 7 to 8:30. It's free and all ages are welcome. There will be a variety of restaurants and food vendors and a lager, beer, and wine garden sponsored by Maraschino's Pub, with 100% of the proceeds going to Second Chance at Life. For more information, call 734-394-5460 or watch for updates on www.facebook.com/CantonFun. Thursday Night Live is sponsored by Community Financial. Hope to see you there.
Hello, my name is Nicole Hamilton. I am one of your fire inspectors here to talk to you today about a very important topic: smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. Both types of detectors are very important to have in your home and specific areas of your home. Just like smoke detection, carbon monoxide detectors should be located on each floor. The carbon monoxide detector monitors for the presence of carbon monoxide gas, which is colorless, odorless, and tasteless. The best place to put a carbon monoxide detector is in a central location outside of each sleeping area, and one on every floor. Some manufacturers make combinations, carbon monoxide and smoke detectors. Batteries must be replaced every 6 months, and detectors should be replaced every 7 to 10 years. An issue Canton Fire has had recently is people calling 911 due to chirping alarms. This chirping is to alert the homeowner that the battery is low, not that it is detecting smoke or carbon monoxide. In the case of an actual emergency, the alarms will continually sound with long beeps. And of course, if you have any fire-related questions, please contact Canton Fire Prevention at the number listed below. Thank you and be safe.
Welcome back to Good Day Canton, where we have our new guest, Trustee Summer Foster. Welcome, Summer.
Hello.
So what is your involvement with the CCIC and the committees?
Sure. So actually I joined what used to be the Canton Response to Hate Crimes Coalition, which is now the Coalition for Inclusive Communities, back before I was a board member. I joined through my previous job at Equality Michigan. And so I got involved with the work there, and I got to know some of the law enforcement officers and what their programs were and what they were looking at doing in the community. And so through that work, I built relationships, and I was really able to begin the conversation with them on how we work more on transparency and how we work on building trust with communities.
Okay. Now, we've had some turbulent times for many reasons over the past year, but especially we had some protests going on with Black Lives Matter and in the Canton community. So how do you think that's affected what we're doing now?
I think it's absolutely the impetus to why we created the Transparency Subcommittee. During that time last year with the protests and everything, we really had an opportunity to lay out the data for the community and say this is what policing looks like in Canton, and work to really build those bridges and build that trust. And so we're just taking it a step forward with the subcommittee.
Okay, could you describe the Transparency Committee?
Sure. So it's a committee of residents led by Eva Davis, who is the director of our library, which is not affiliated through the board and the township. They're a separate entity. And it's really to look at some of the data about complaints, about use of force, and even looking at our policies to making sure that we are transparent and that we are fulfilling our community goals.
Do you think that Canton is a leader in this?
Yes, absolutely. We see many communities around the state in our general area looking to see what Canton does first, and then, and then kind of seeing how that they can implement some of our efforts.
Do you think this committee will extend or expand at all, or do you think it might be a good size to start with?
Yeah, so I mean, this is really a proactive committee. We're not doing it in response to anything. And so I think really it's up to the community, it's up to the committee to decide, you know, what their scope of work is in the future. And, you know, the board will have some input on, you know, things that we want them to look at, so.
What do you think will happen with this committee in our community in terms of how the response will be?
I mean, I think it's a positive. I think anytime that you put your values of transparency out there, the community can see that, and I think it's a positive.
Now, we have another program that we started this year, and it's the social worker program with Hagira Health that's going to start very soon. Why don't you describe that one for us?
So I'm actually very excited about that. A number of our police officers get called on calls that really have nothing to do with crime, and it's community members who are looking for support. And I think the social worker program will take a lot of the burden off of police on that. Mm-hmm. And I think that you know, it's a service that our community really needs.
Now, you work for Michigan Voices, you're executive director. How do you see the importance of your work there with what we're doing in the township?
So, I mean, I really don't see much of a correlation. I think what we do there is we work to build coalitions, and I think I take that skill in some of the work that we're doing in the township with some of the committees and the coalitions. But at Michigan Voices, most of our work is centered around like voter registration and civic engagement and things like that.
Okay, all right. How about in your past work experience?
Yeah, I mean, so as I talked about before at Equality Michigan, one of the reasons that I got involved with the Hate Crimes Coalition is there was a correlation between LGBTQ people not always feeling comfortable going to police with needs and working to build bridges there. And so I think that's part of how I got involved in this work with the township.
Do you see any other partnerships that we should form or could form with this committee?
Well, I think the CCIC does a great job building relationships with civil rights organizations and marginalized groups and some of our faith groups and some of the other groups in the community. I think, you know, just making sure that people even know that that coalition exists, I think would be a great thing.
Now, if somebody wanted to get involved in this committee, how would they do that?
So I think, you know, the board members for the subcommittee have been chosen already, and they have a certain term limit. But I think anybody can get involved with the CCIC, and they should just reach out to our public service, our public safety organization to get involved with that committee.
Okay, and what kind of organizations belong to that group right now?
So we have PFLAG, we have folks from MCWS, we have folks from the Gurara, we have folks from the Hindu Temple, the Michigan Department of Civil Rights, I believe the NAACP. Many other groups are members of that coalition.
Okay, that's exciting. So we're looking forward to more work coming from there.
Yes.
And it's what the great thing is like you had said, we're being proactive and we aren't waiting till something happens.
Yes, yes. And I really appreciate the leadership of Director Baugh and his team on helping to bring this forward.
Oh, thank you. Is there anything else that you would like to summarize about our social worker program or CCIC?
No, I just think that, you know, Canton for years now has shown that we're willing to lead, we're willing to be proactive, and that we really value community and we value transparency and accountability in our community.
Great, and we're here to teach others how to help us
yes.
with it. Thank you, Summer. Thank you for being here and helping with this. Thanks for this
you.
initiative. It's a really good program. Well, thank you very much. This is Anne Marie again signing off for Good Day Canton, and this is a really important topic, and if you have any questions, please call the township offices and we can help you, or call Chad Bell, the police chief. Have a good day.